My scars seem so trivial now. They happened in 8th grade gym class. I'm a middle school gym class survivor. Because I'm an old fart, my 8th grade class was in the end of the 1960s. So what happened then was we had the country was at war, we had the civil rights movement, we had the women's liberation movement, and they all came to a collision in my gym class. Our gym teacher was Coach. Coach was old school. He was a former Marine. He believed gym class was boot camp for life. The least violent game we did in our gym class was dodgeball. Every class was like the Hunger Games. Who was going to survive? He didn't like me. He called me Carmody. And he didn't like a friend of mine, a black kid named Neil, because Neil did an impersonation of Coach. Coach had two sayings. One was, "Move your candy asses." And the other saying was, no matter what the injury you had was, it could be a detached retina, Coach would say, "Run it off." So one day we were playing one of Coach's games, which was rugby basketball. And a kid got a bloody nose, and Neil, over his shoulder, yelled out, "Run it off." So the kid starts running around the gym, and Coach flips out. "You're bleeding on my gym. What are you doing here? Go see the school nurse." And then he glares at Neil. Now, the school nurse wasn't much help because the school had been sued, and they weren't allowed to provide any aid, so the only thing she could ever do was give you a cup of tea. On the day in question, we were playing touch football. Neil was guarding me. I went out for a pass. I caught the ball. Neil pushed me down. I put my arm out to block my fall. And I felt something give. This is the gross part of the story. Neil runs up to give me a hand up, and he backs away, his eyes big. I look over, and somebody's giving me a hand up, and I said, "Oh, great." I reached for it, but it was my own arm, because the bone had come out of the elbow. I know, sorry. There's a funny part to this. Coach comes running over, pushes Neil, and said, "What did you do to him?" Now you got to remember the time period. Neil can't back up. Neil pushes him back. Nothing. They square off. They start doing the Ali Fraser thing. I'm on the ground, going, pointing to my arm. To the rescue comes the school nurse. She's carrying her cup of tea. I managed to squeeze out ambulance before I pass out. I wake up in the hospital, and one of my classmates visits me a few days later. He says, "Pat, Coach has lost his mind. He does this Newt Rockney speech about you now." He says you were cut down in the prime of your life, and to go out and win gym class for Carmody. It makes no sense. We all hate you now. My serious question, I go, "How is Neil?" He says, "Neil was suspended. They're talking of kicking him out of the school." I go, "No." And I go, get out of the hospital, and I go see the school principal. And I say, "Neil should not be suspended. This is an accident. This is par for Coach's class. It's not and they lift the suspension. But our friendship ended because Neil felt that he was cited for something he didn't do, and he also felt guilty about my arm. There's a second part to this story, though. Neil was kicked out of Coach's gym class. So I go to gym. I'm sitting in the next gym class. I got my cast on. I'm sitting in the locker room, and all the boys are all wired up. And one of the boys says to the other, "Who do you have today?" And they go, "Jane." And the guy goes, "Ooh." What had happened while I was in the hospital was somebody tried to drag a middle school girl into the woods against her will. So Coach decided that he met the female gym teacher and he was going to toughen up the girls. So he arranged co-ed wrestling classes, unbeknownst to the parents or the school administrators. Now back then, my favorite TV show was The Avengers, starring Diana Rigg. She would wear this leather outfit and beat up guys. Oh, I loved it. Meanwhile, our co-star, Mr. Steed, would sip tea, which he got from the nurse. When I walked into that gym class, I saw 25 of my classmates wrestling 25 Emma Peels. My hormonal volcano went wild. I'm 13. I go to Coach. I go, "Coach, I can wrestle. I can go in there. I only have one arm. I have moves. I can train these young women. I'm here for them. Coach ignored me. He didn't talk to me after the Neil incident. I was the invisible man. So for the next few weeks were the most painful weeks of my life as I paced around watching my 13-year-old male classmates wrestle my 13-year-old female classmates. Several of whom were voluptuous. I mean, the female one, from my perspective. This was a tough time period. Finally, the cast comes off. That day, I am so excited. I break into my father's cabinet. I put some Droog on. I got the hair going. I'm wearing my nicest t-shirt. I am ready for gym that day. I've got the cast off. So I'm sitting in the locker room. Coach says the first thing he said to me in a month. He sees me, he goes, "Ease up, Carmody." They canceled wrestling. Some candy ass complained to their parents. He said, "Next week you'll probably be doing square dancing. Good luck with that, nom." The reason I thought of this story is Coach passed away this year, 92 years old. Yeah. There's a rumor that his tombstone had RIO on it, which is, of course, write it off. I got together with a couple of my classmates to discuss all this. And I brought up the Neil story, and no one remembered it. They didn't remember what had happened. They didn't remember the injustice of it. They didn't even know what had happened to Neil in the years past, because I wanted to know. But what they all remembered was, remember when we wrestled the girls? And remember you didn't? Because you said you had a cold or something because you were scared? You candy ass. Some scars you have on the outside. Some scars you carry on the inside. I can't watch something like Kill Bill without getting frustrated. But some scars like Neil's, I guess you just get used to. Thank you.